Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Calexico City Council Calexico Redevelopment Successor Agency Calexico Financing Authority regular meeting agenda. Today's date is Wednesday, December 1st, 2021. It is 6:33 p.m. We're starting the meeting. I will call roll call. Mayor Javier Moreno is here. Mayor Pro Tem Garcia.
Here.
Councilmember Ureña.
Here.
Councilmember Romo.
Here.
Councilmember Ariola Fernandez.
Here.
Thank you very much. We have quorum. Due to the declaration of emergency, this meeting is being held pursuant to AB 361, approved by Governor of California on September 16, 2021, and some or all city council members may participate in this meeting by teleconference. Pursuant to Imperial County Public Health Department guidelines, city council meetings are now open to public attendance at 100% capacity. All the council chambers and all persons entering City Hall will be required to wear a face mask. Public participation will continue to be available in the following ways. Members of the public are encouraged to watch the meeting via live stream at http://communityspectrum.org live at 6:30 p.m. or via Calexico City Hall Facebook page at www.facebook.com City of Calexico, California. Members of the public will be able to make public comments in the following ways. In-person comments. Submit public comments via email by 2 p.m. on Wednesday, December 1st, 2021 to our city clerk at gggarcia@calexico.ca.gov or via fax to number is 760-768-2103. You may also make public comments via Zoom from a PC, Mac, or iPad, or iPhone, or Android device. Please click the link below to join the webinar. Our webinar ID is 837-5630-2840, and our passcode is 326142. And we will now stand up for a pledge of allegiance. And repeat after me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mr. Garcia, can you read the commission's
City of Calexico mission statement.
Together,
we pledge to provide effective and efficient services in a courteous and respectful manner to improve the quality of life for all in our unique border community. Viva Calexico.
Señor, Padre Todopoderoso, ponemos en tus manos esta reunión del Cabildo de Calexico, como también ponemos en tus manos nuestras vidas, Señor, de toda la comunidad de Calexico y su Valle Imperial. Padre, ayúdanos a poder discernir todas las situaciones, todos los proyectos que en este momento se están trabajando con la administración y los empleados de Calexico. Los pongo en tus manos y te lo pido en el nombre de Jesús. Amén.
Thank you, Mr. Romo. Please have a seat. So we now move to the approval agenda. I believe we have one emergency item to be considered, and we'll now take a vote on that. We'll start here.
Just description of the urgency items. Approve a letter to Imperial County Board of Supervisors regarding reconsideration of face covering mandate. And this item to be added to the agenda would need to be voted by a 4/5 of the City Council.
Okay. And that request was submitted by Council Members Ureña and Romo. Okay, we'll now take a vote on that. How do you?
I don't quite understand it. There needs to be a motion first.
Yeah, I make a motion to approve this request on the consent agenda. Did anybody second that?
I'll second.
Well, not on the consent agenda.
Okay,
On
in
the
order
agenda.
for this to be included, we have to vote on it, if we're
Yes.
gonna include it or
Not
not.
on the consent agenda. Just to include it on the agenda,
Right,
for discussion.
right.
Okay.
That's correct.
I'll second that motion for the, so that it's on the regular agenda for discussion.
And all those in favor?
Aye.
Well, I'm sorry.
Aye. Are we clear on the
Well, we're
motion?
gonna start over here.
Okay, sorry.
But you wanna start over here? Go ahead. What do you?
Aye.
Aye.
No?
No.
No.
Okay, 3-2. Doesn't go. Okay, now I'll make a regular motion to approve the agenda.
Make a motion to approve the agenda.
Anybody second that?
Second.
Second by Mr. Garcia. All those in favor?
I do have some discussion on that motion.
I'm sorry?
I do have some discussion on the motion presented.
On the which one?
On the motion that is presented, I have some discussion.
Procedural, there's no discussion. because
Es
we
una
voted on it.
motion with discussion.
I know, but procedural,
Yeah, I mean, we have a motion on the floor and a second for approval of the agenda.
Yes, I do have some discussion on that particular motion. I think it's unfortunate that we're not considering the emergency item, given the fact that a new variant is out there. This is a hot topic, national debate. There are bigger cities with bigger populations that are taking
Yeah,
this seriously.
At this point, the motion is for the approval of the agenda. We already took a vote on the other item to add it to the agenda.
Correct. I'm deliberating on my opposition to the motion at the table for the reasons of we're evading tackling a very important public health matter. I think we've done this before to try to not opine, to have an opinion for the safety of our citizens. I think it is the worst time when our citizens are in danger for us to stay silent, to not even have a yes/no vote, to evade discussion. The people of Calexico will
Councilmember,
know.
maybe the best place during your council comments, you can make those comments on it.
Absolutely, and
So-
I'll finish my comments there. I'm ready to vote.
Yes, we have a motion, a second on the agenda to approve the agenda.
right, and there was motion by
I made
Mr.
a motion.
Alpernaz, second by you. So now we're gonna vote on it. How do you
Yes.
vote?
I would like to vote with the comment. I vote no for, and the reason for my no vote is because I think it's cowardly to evade a discussion on the citizens' health in our community.
So you're not voting on the consent agenda?
I'm voting
That's
on the,
what the consent agenda-
on the approval of the agenda, which we're voting on right now. So I am voting no on that,
And you?
What is the motion?
to approve the
Approve
agenda.
the agenda?
Scene emergency item.
Oh, my vote is no.
Yes?
Yes.
Yes.
3-2 again, thank you.
Otra vez 3-2.
Okay,
Okay.
moving on to presentations. We have a presentation by Ms. Lisa Tailenda,
Empecemos
Planning and
entonces.
Building Services Director, regarding the development impact fees, update and the planning and building services permitting phase continuous update.
For the sake of practicality, if any of the members
Excuse me,
wishes to come up.
¿me puedo levantar del cabildo, por favor? Estoy muy molesta. Si el cabildo no toma en cuenta la salud de la población de Calexico y no vamos a trabajar como un equipo, entonces yo me retiro. ¿Ok? No tiene caso seguir aquí.
Buenas noches.
De igual forma, si se retira la señora Roma, yo también me voy.
Que se queden los tres trabajando y que se sigan contaminando.
So let the record reflect that
Ese es
6:40,
el trabajo que hace el mayor.
Councilwoman
Calexico.
Gloria Romo and Councilwoman Ranja have left the
Así es,
chamber.
podemos retirarnos.
On their own,
Pregunté al abogado, ¿podemos retirarnos? Exacto.
on their own free will. 6:40.
No quieren trabajar, no vamos a estar aquí.
Ahorita vamos a subir los videos.
Go ahead, Sonia.
Good evening, council members of the public and staff. This presentation before you, it'll be a brief update on an item that was brought to the council on the October 20th city council meeting. It is a presentation in regards to how the city planning and building services department is conducting not only the building and planning permit fee update, but as well as the development impact fees update. Last night there was a development impact fee workshop. It was hosted here at the council chambers for the public. The presentation that I'm gonna skim through really quick. What was utilized during the workshop yesterday evening. The presentation that we're just going to skim through real briefly will be posted to the city website and circulated via the city Facebook, for the public and citizens of Calexico to review and see how projects of this nature are being processed here at the city. It will allow the public to see how we're conducting the formulation and creation of our new fees, how we're trying to incentivize economic development within the city, and really see how they're being formulated by the direction and vision of the council. So real briefly, I'm going to go through what we have here. If you guys have any questions, I'll answer them right at the end just so I can get through it. It's a little bit long, but not too long. It's pretty in-depth, so I'll just skim through it real quick. The workshop, we're focusing a lot on education and sharing the knowledge of how the impact fees are formulated so that the public sees how we're making an effort to be transparent and as close to accuracy as possible. And we're also creating our own formulas and utilizing national standards for development impact fees and permit fees and how they're formulated in other parts of the nation and in California. And also a big push is the Mitigation Fee Act. So this workshop focused a lot on showing the historical background of where do permit fees come from. So, and really breaking it down on what a building permit fee is, planning permit fees, and then what development impact fees are and how both tools are utilized within a city. And how they're split up and broken apart. So the whole presentation really goes in depth into the purpose of building and planning permits.
The city clerk will go on your cue.
All right, thank you. So yeah, Ms. Gabby, if you could click to the next one. It goes through the purpose of permitting fee collections and the nexus, the requirements that we have to meet as a jurisdiction in order to impose a fee on the permitting process, as well as the impact of developments that are new in our city. If you could click, Ms. Gabby, please. And so we went through a historical background, so it shows when we had our last fee update and where we are now. Next slide, please. And then an analysis of why we're doing the update, why it's needed, and what we're utilizing as incentives, and really what the target audience is with the permitting fees and the updates for our development impact fees. Ms. Gabby, next slide. And then here we kind of give a little bit of a background on formula factors for the fee update calculation, so how we're creating these fees just for building and planning permits. Next slide, Ms. Gabby. So in these next ones, we can just skip through it. I encourage the council to, when you guys get a chance, because it's going to come back on the December 15th meeting for your guys' direction and input. These right here are draft proposed fees. And so I'll be sending out an email in the very near future prior to the next council meeting as a reminder for what's coming up and what the changes are being proposed. If we could skip the next 4 slides, Ms. Gabby, I believe. One more? There we go. Oh, one more, please, sorry. And then this portion of the workshop focused on development impact fees. Ms. Gabby, next slide. So development impact fees, what are development impact fees? Real quick, the development impact fees are the one-time fee that are imposed on new developments. And this allows the city to impose a fee on new developments, and that fee goes towards revenue for the construction or expansion of capital facilities for the jurisdiction in which the new development is going to be located in. Ms. Gabby, could we, next slide, thank you. And then it also talks about what can development impact fees be used for. Next slide, Ms. Gabby, please. It also informed the public what the current development impact fees are for the city. We also discussed in the next slide, if we could go to the next slide, Ms. Gabby, what the city of Calexico is currently doing in the updating portion of the development impact fees, as in what findings does a jurisdiction that is imposing development impact fees need within their document as a nexus, and for it to be legally defensible in order to impose fees on new development. So just kind of real quick, identify the purpose of the fee, identify how the fees are to be used, and then a big one is determining how a reasonable relationship exists between the fees used and the type of development project on which the fee is to be imposed. Next slide, Ms. Gabby. Thank you. And then there's a timeline for the development impact fees. And here on this slide, we depict our tentative dates for items to be brought to the public and to the council for commenting, review, and updates. And as we brought initially on October 20th before the council, we informed the council that we would be doing a update every 3 months. So this is a pre-update to the official update because we're really focusing on public outreach and public participation. So this concludes my presentation on where we are right now in terms of updating not only our permitting fees, but our impact fees. Thank you.
Just one question. Could you go back to the, I guess the second slide where it has the amounts and fees? The graph? At the beginning, right there. Okay, so the only thing that got my attention, because I'm not clear about this, where it says, some of them have in red are the only be the changes, right? And black are
Yes,
the
the
ones.
ones in red are draft.
Proposed.
Proposed,
Okay.
mhm.
So right where it says not specified, how do we measure that? How do we come to that amount if there's not specified?
So currently the unit, so the black portion is what was adopted.
Okay.
And when we're saying it's not specified is because in the initial study that was conducted in 2009, the items that are not specified, the consultants at that time did not create any type of formula or fee for the sale, for example, and this is a very good one, for the sale of copies. If a jurisdiction does not have a fee adopted by council, we cannot impose a fee on the public. So it's very important that in this case, when we do the sale of copies or anything like that, before we start charging the public, that we have the background. And what I mean by background is the formulas and the analysis of what we're charging, why we're charging, how we're going to charge it. And that's why we're including it now, because it was not included in the 2009 update for the fees. So that's something that's needed, because if we don't have adopted fees, we cannot charge for copies.
Okay. All right. Thank you. That's all I have. Anybody else? No.
Just a comment. I think it was great. I was here yesterday when you presented also the same information to the public and to some of the planning commissioners that were sitting on the public section also, and there were some developers. So I think, not just updating this information, in the cost of these fees, but also I think we need to start working on, alongside also a very strong marketing campaign because we don't want this to be the best kept secret, right? You know, this is something great. This is something that, you know, we're beginning to see that things are happening in Calexico, construction businesses, amidst, you know, the pandemic that we're going on or we're getting out. But something like this, I think, will continue to revive and invite, you know, investment. So maybe we can work on a plan for marketing. Maybe we can bring back, you know, the commissions. Maybe we can put this on the Economic Development Finance Commission to work. And if I recall, in previous times, when I was a commissioner, in that commission, we were working on a plan, on a you know, marketing plan. So what best idea or better idea to engage those individuals to put this out, to provide feedback, and to create a very robust marketing campaign. I know that we have to invest, you know, we don't have a lot of money, but I think this will be money well invested in putting this out there. Because the last thing, like I said, is having this as the best kept secret in Calexico. We don't want to see that. I want to see that maybe, and I think that's something that I mentioned to Miguel. I know that billboard, the electronic billboard, that it's on Colvin and 111. I know that it's up, and I recall, you know, that when they put it up, I think they had mentioned that they were going to do some in-kind advertisement. So I don't know if we can go back to that and maybe reach out to the advertising company where we can, you know, have some sort of you know, announcement or signage going up. So let's look it up. Let's look into that. Thank you. And kudos, by the way. Great work.
I don't have anything. I just want to thank you.
All right, thank you. Now we have the bi-weekly COVID-19 update.
Good evening, City Council, Mayor, and those in attendance, and obviously our customers that are watching via our social media platforms. Today's presentation will be brief, starting off with the Calexico COVID numbers for the day. Today we have a total of, I should have got some glasses here. That is 8,965. This is from the very beginning of the pandemic, okay? And the active cases as of today was 169. Total recovery, which is the number that I always look for, because as long as this is going up, we're okay, right? The 8,555. Unfortunately, we have had 241 deaths. The number for 169 today, if you were to go back to our last city council meeting, it was at 187, so there is a slight decline. There is a increase in COVID calls within the county, but as a city, we're seeing it to either stay normal, or in this case, we're dropping, that's what, like 19 cases below our last meeting. So whatever we are doing, we need to keep doing that, because it's looking good for this, as well as for the city of Calexico. The other big thing happening with COVID-19 is obviously we have the new variant. It's called Omicron. It was initially found in South Africa, and as of today, it has found its way to the United States. We have one active case, and that is in the state of California, and this is pretty much in the the San Francisco area, hopefully being contained in that area. Some of the highlights of Omicron, it's fairly new, so a lot of data and information is not out on it yet, but obviously they're working on this. One of the things that we need to know is that the signs and symptoms, that's what they're saying out, is they're less than I'm gonna see how they state it here. They use extremely vague symptoms is what they said. So it's gonna be like a mild cold symptom, itchy throat, fatigue, not energy to do nothing, but not an associated cough. You can still smell, you don't lose your taste. Sounds like a cold. If you have that, it's probably a good idea that you get tested or seek your medical attention. Just because we're not sure if you have it, we need to make sure that we handle that. Good thing about this variant is that our COVID-19 test that we currently have works. It's found that it is finding this Omicron as well. So that's what we have on the Omicron. Obviously, by our next meeting, we'll have more information. This is fairly new. Like I said, today they found the first one. Our vaccination clinics are still happening. Vaccinations are still being pushed out. If you haven't got it, they recommend that you get it. Also, if you have got it, they recommend that you get your booster. If you've already gone over 3 to 6 months after your last dose, then you qualify for the booster, which is highly recommended. All the vaccinations take place in the city of Calexico. We have pretty much basically any pharmacy in Calexico. There are several doctor's offices within the city of Calexico that are offering it. So let's make sure we take care of that. I'm just going to leave with this. The mask requirements are active still. If you are a non-vaccinated person and you are in a public facility, you're still obligated to wear a mask. If you're in the health setting, we need to do it. The school setting, we need to do it. So stay healthy. Make sure you're staying home. Wash your hands. Still be mindful of social distancing. We're not out of it yet, and we want to make sure that we maintain the status that we are right now, which is manageable. So if there's any questions for this, I'll be happy to answer them.
I don't you. Thank you. Anybody else?
Thank you for the update.
Thank you.
No, thank you.
guys.
Okay, moving on to announcements. These proceedings may be viewed on the City Calexico website, www.calexico.ca.gov, the Friday following the City Council meeting. Committee office hours with Mayor Moreno will be held by appointment. Please contact the City Clerk's office at 760-768-2102 to schedule an appointment. Public comments and public appearances. Note, not to exceed 3 minutes. This is the time for the public to address City Council on any item not appearing on the agenda that is within the subject matter of jurisdiction of the City Council. However, if the item you wish to comment is on the consent agenda, please comment now. The mayor will recognize you, and when you come to the microphone, please state your name and place of residence for the record. While members of the public are encouraged to participate, it is unlawful to disturb or delay the City Council meeting with personal or slanderous remarks. The City Council is prohibited by state law from taking action or discussing items not included on the printed agenda. If the item you wish to comment on is on the public portion of the agenda, we will take your comment when we get to the item on the agenda. Please direct your questions and comments to the City Council. I only have one public comment. Madam Clerk, do we have any online comments? No? Public? No? Okay, thank you. I have Mr. Ben Horton.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, distinguished members of the council, councilor, and the city manager. First off, I want to commend Lisa for our outstanding presentation. And I guess we can say so much for all these high-tech consultants we paid for that didn't give us anything. Now we have somebody to give us the facts the way it should be. I'll make it real quick and directly to the point. One of the last commission meetings, I suggested that we should have impact fees report and permit report. How often have you seen anything like that coming to the city council? Every month, we should know where we're at in reference to permits, even businesses getting started, in order to know where you're at and where you're going. I'll stop with that. You can think about how you want to address it.
Thank you, Ben. Appreciate it. Thank you.
And I just want to give Mr. Figueroa a comment of that he values everybody that comes into this city hall and what their comments. I guess I can use a corner phrase. We did a sidebar on the side. He explained to some of the things about the Christmas parade, what we plan to do. Yesterday I was at the school board meeting. They were already planning for the Christmas parade in Calexico. I explained to them for different reasons we're not having it. Another thing that I want to bring up and I hope I say this in a very positive way, the commissions. Not with this council, but I offered to put together a lesson plan to educate the commissioners in order to move things forward. That was a couple of years, let's say last year or a year before you guys came on board, even Rosie, to her credit, to put together a lesson plan that would come to the city manager, and we would train the commissioners, proper protocols and things such as that. We should look at this, what, a year? Now we haven't had a commission. And then we have a district. The BID is a business improvement district, not a commission, a district. By the city council, by the district we formed, we should have been having meetings. You took the business's money and say we're going to do something to benefit the business. And for some reason, we hadn't done it. My time is ending. I don't want to be cut it short. So I end with that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Horton. Okay, move on to the city manager's report.
Mayor, members of the council, members of the community, I want to make an invitation for the community and obviously the general public to attend the 2021 Christmas tree lighting ceremony here at City Hall. It's going to take place next Tuesday, December 7th from 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. We're going to have some warm refreshments, some pastries to give those that come in. It's something that has become a tradition in our city, and we want to make sure that we keep it that way, despite of the obvious pandemic that we're going through. And this is to echo some of the sentiments right now that were shared by Mr. Horton, in which my staff and I were able to come together and find ways to have some type of notoriety for the time of the year in our city, for our community. So that's an open invitation for everybody. Our city clerk, Gabby Garcia, has done a very good job in making sure to share this news with the community in Calexico, and also credit to the design that she did for the flyer, which looks very nice. That's one item. The second item that I wish to bring up has to do with what transpired last night at the Planning Commission. Director Thailenda touched on the workshop that she also hosted, but as it pertains to the Planning Commission, I do want to share some of the things that are going on, because a lot is going on at the Planning Commission level that is changing the way business is conducted in Calexico, specifically on the building and planning services side. The agenda will cover some items as we move forward, but as it pertains to yesterday's meeting, there was a tentative parcel map and plan unit development that was approved for a subdivision that will bring in 113 single-family homes to Calexico. For those in attendance that are Calexicans, for us that have been here in town for a while, we know we have not seen that type of development in quite some time. So credit for the commission, credit for staff to bringing these projects off the ground so we can start seeing some movement in town. Aside from that, we also had another item pertaining to a tentative map, a zone change for another affordable housing project. One of the things that I want to highlight is that we're tackling all types of housing needs, not only one. Because as the state of California is pushing through policy, the promotion and development of housing development projects, I also want to point out that market rate housing is also needed in Calexico. And it's important to point out that that's being looked at as well. With that said, I want to bring up Chief Gonzalo Gerardo. There is an item that we have been seeing in town, those of us that live here. We've unfortunately been aware through the media through our police department, through our fire department, of some incidents that have happened around town regarding some fire incidents. It's gone to a point in which arsonists have been identified, and it's a very, very important subject and concerning as well for our community. So I requested our chief to put together a brief presentation / report so we can inform the community what it is that's going on out there and what we're doing. Chief.
Good evening, Honorable City Mayor, City Council, ladies and gentlemen, people in the public, and everybody watching in internet land. So this is one of the subjects, it's a very social subject because we've been dealing with this for quite a while now. And this is not just, I'm going to talk about the arsons because that's what's really, it's a topic, the hot topic right now, no pun intended, but it's been hitting us hard in the west side of town and actually just west of Imperial Avenue. We have, our officers for Calexico Police Department have arrested at least 4 different individuals various times for the same charge. They've actually caught them with the smell of smoke, with the smell of accelerants, by people, witnesses reporting them. They've been caught. They have been taken to county jail. Unfortunately, if you guys have a chance today to look at the Calexico Chronicle, they wrote a really good article on what's happening in Kern County with the rise in homicides. And so it kind of paints a really good picture on the fact that Kern County per capita right now is probably it's the murder capital of California, and probably the nation at this point. For every 8,000 residents, they have a homicide. That's a lot. So it goes back to the propositions that were passed years back. So we started with AB 109, the realignment, where people did not go to state prison anymore, and they gave the money to the counties, so the county sheriffs would house all these violent criminals with violent history, people that have been in the prison system. And the money ran a little bit dry there. They still get some money, but not what they first initially got. Then you had passages of other bills, and the people voted on. The people voted on because they don't read what it says. So you got, Proposition, 47, where it made some of the, I believe it's 47, made some of the crimes misdemeanors. Before, when I first started working as a police officer, if you carried a loaded firearm, it was an automatic felony. They became misdemeanors. And so a lot of crimes that were felonies right away are misdemeanors. Some of them are not even bookable offenses. That means that you can't book in county jail, and we give people cite and releases. This doesn't work because if there's no consequences and there's no way to put these people in jail to pay for what they've done, and we all know that we live in a country that you're innocent until proven guilty, but some of these individuals in the state of California, what they've always come across is the fact that these people are low-income people that can't afford bail. The problem with that is you set them back on the street and they continue to do these crimes. Our hands are tied, guys, and unless the state of California, our citizens of Calexico, and the citizens of California decide to vote to do away with this type of no consequence for a crime committed, it's going to continue, and it's going to continue to get worse. I believe there was like a pastor or somebody on the article from the Chronicle, and they asked him what's going on. He says the devil's running loose. And so that's what's happening everywhere. If we go nationwide, we are not the only city that is going through this. I'm not making excuses. I mean, because I can have, we do have people coming in. We do special details where we have officers come in on their days off and to try to mitigate this and catch somebody. Our homeless population too is very bothered because we wake them up, twice a night to see if they saw anybody light the fire, if they have any information on who might be doing this. So we disturb them too, and they feel the pressure that my officers put on them because we're trying to look for somebody that's causing this. The fire department also has people that come in, and we've been working together. Our shifts have been working really together with their shifts, looking for these people. I mean, you see a fire truck out there on patrol when we start getting fires because they also don't want to see people get hurt. And so that's what we've been working on ever since it started. We haven't stopped. I mean, I can show you, I mean, just in overtime how much we've been paying to try to catch these guys. But like I said, we catch them, we put them in jail, and Chief Avila and I were talking about it at our department head meeting this morning. We're saying we put them in jail, and 2-3 days later they're back out. I don't know. I don't think it's a district attorney issue. I don't think it's a county jail issue at some point. I think it's just the fact that with COVID, they use this, I think, as an excuse, and this is my personal view, that the Judicial State Council decided to make a lot of these crimes where it was zero bail, so a lot of people would get released, and you get just cited out in the field. They're only taking violent felonies and domestic violence. I've told this before. I said it before, probably about a year ago. So we're going to continue to try to do our best to catch these people. The frustration shouldn't be taken out on our officers. If you have any complaints, you can email it to police@calexico.ca.gov and give us your complaints. We'll look at it. We'll try to get back to you, with some sort of answer and kind of enlighten you guys on what happened at that call and why nobody was caught, or if that person was caught, why he was seen down your street 6 to 8 hours later. Because we'll tell you the truth. It was not a bookable offense, or the guy posted bail, or we couldn't, we just cited him out at the scene. And that's all I have for you. I mean, I know it doesn't sound good, but every city is going through a lot of these problems. You have any questions, concerns?
Thank you, Chief.
One thing, Mayor, Council, that we have a department head meeting every morning before our city council meeting. I give the opportunity to my staff to bring up relevant items. We talk about strategy as to how we can better communicate with our residents, our businesses. And we agreed that we're not shying away from what's going on. We need to make sure that our leaders in the public safety field, like they do a good job, is expose and share from their perspective what's going on and what we're doing. So that's not going to change. We're going to continue to do that as you guys and the community has seen in the past time. So we're working very hard. There are several things that are changing so we can become a better town to come and live in, do business in, and the least we can do is share what our leaders do in town. So thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, Chief. That's it?
Yes, sir.
Yep. Mr. Viola, you're done? Okay, thank you. All right. Moving on to the next item, it's City Council comments, annual reports of meetings attended. Ladies first.
Okay. Oh, the only thing I did, the only thing is I attended the ICTC, which is, like always, is the updates on the progress that they're doing, especially on 98 and in Calexico and other projects that are going to be coming up. As soon as I get a whole list, I'll bring it back to the council.
Okay. Mr. Garcia?
Thank you, Mayor. Like I stated earlier, I had a chance to attend both the workshop that took place yesterday and then also the Planning Commission meeting. Again, I can't say enough, it's a very dynamic meeting, and more than dynamic also, where a lot of great things are happening. So looking forward to continue to see that trend continuing. And just to go back, to what the chief and what the city manager just mentioned, and I think Miguel, this is great, the transparency. I think we always go back to that, transparency, being transparent, being informative to our citizens. So I think if we can make this an ongoing item on the agenda, or at least a presentation where, this time was the chief, next time could be someone else that can continue, and maybe just like, also Mr. Horton alluded to, getting reports so people can get to know not just their individuals that work here at the city and for them, but then also what's going on. I think this is a great forum to continue to inform the public, to continue to foster the transparency. And also I just want to go back to the announcements. You mentioned the tree lighting that will take place on the 7th as a tradition, and I'm glad that is going to continue. And then also something that I saw that also, hopefully it continues to be a tradition in the middle of something that we were going through this past year. The Recreation Department also had I think it was called Santa Express or something like that, where kids were able to, drive by rec department, and they were dropping up letters and getting a goodie bag. So it is my understanding that will take place again. And let me see, just double check on December the 9th from 4:30 to 6:30.
If I may, just to add to that, actually, my recreation manager is planning at our next opportunity to give us an update on that.
Oh, that's great. I didn't want to steal the thunder, but I just want to make sure
that's good.
People plan, and hopefully we have our surprise Santa also. I won't disclose the name, but last year we had a Santa there. So again, I won't disclose the name or the identity of that, individual, but hopefully he's up to the task this year also. And that's my report.
And who's that?
He was fit Santa, right?
Thank you. Looking forward to that, obviously. I did attend Mexicali Plaza Calafia's 40th anniversary. Got an invite by the city of Mexicali. It's for 1 to 4. It's pretty good. It's an anniversary. They had like a lienzo charro. It's pretty well put together in representation of Calexico as their sister city. I did also go to meet with City Councilwoman Victoria Guerrero, who I guess contemplated of creating a binational health coalition, specifically for health issues at a local level, which is us here in Mexicali. And that's all I have to say. So moving on to the agenda, consent agenda. All matters listed on the consent calendar are to be considered routine by City Council, Calexico Community Redevelopment Agency successor or agency or Calexico Financing Authority, and will be enacted by one motion in the form listed. Any item may be removed from the consent calendar and considered separately by the City Council.
So a motion.
Make a motion. You're making a motion? Okay, Mr. Garcia is making a motion for approval. Anybody second it? Second by Ms. Arreola. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Motion carried. Items pulled from consent calendar for discussion and potential action items. Item number 6, approval of 2021-2023 CalWorks Prep Program Agreement with the County of Imperial and authorizing City Manager to sign the agreement.
Mayor, members of the council, members of the community, what we have here before you is a program that has benefited our city for some years now. What we have here is the Department of Social Services. They have a specific program which is called CalWorks. That program funds the pre-employment preparation program, what we call the PREP program, in which the city is able to obtain eligible candidates so they can provide a service activity with the city of Calexico. They are not replacements of city employees. I want to make that clear. All this gets done through our Human Resource and Risk Management Department. We appreciate the work that we do with the service provider selected by the County of Imperial, which in this case is IVROP. They have a rich history in our city and county providing services. So we look forward to this opportunity so we can benefit from it as a city from an operational standpoint. This is a 2-year agreement that will expire in 2023.
Thank you. Any discussion?
Just that I just want to echo that this is a great program. I'm very familiar with this type of programs, from the workforce side. And I think it does provide a lot of also hands-on experience to individuals that might be lacking that, or maybe even open up some opportunities to move up or to explore careers. And with that also, I would like just to add, not to deviate this from this item, but I would like to add something to this or to think about. And I can probably bring it up on future items, but I want to go back to this on my comments, final comments for future items. So thank you. So with that, I'll move for approval.
Second.
Second, Vice President. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, motion carried 3-0. Item number 7, authorize city manager to enter into agreements related to the city's use of Imperial County Geographic Information System.
Mayor, members of the council, members of the community, this item is coming not only to your attention in Calexico, but it's also going to in general, the 7 cities in Imperial County. This is a great tool in general for the city, specifically for the Planning and Building Services Department, for the economic development efforts that we do, in which we get access to specific data within our city as it pertains to land, property, parcels, so we can make a better service as it pertains to our work. This has been an ongoing service with the city for years. I've been working with Mr. Jack Dunham from the Assessor's Office to make sure that we have all the documentation in place so we can bring this to your attention. Again, it's an ongoing tool that benefits the services we provide developers.
Okay, thank you. Any discussion?
I don't have anything.
No? Thank you. I'll make a motion to approve.
I make a motion to approve.
I made a motion. Somebody can second it.
Oh, I second it.
Okay, thank you. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All right, 3-0. Item number 8, authorize the city manager to purchase 1 new chassis and bucket truck in the amount of $199,067.78 for PB Loader Corporation under Sourcewell.
Mayor, and members of the council, as we presented to our community in the month of December as part of our first quarter budget report, there were a number of items within the bar that the council approved to address the needs, the multiple needs that the departments in the city have. One of the needs is in the Public Works Department as it pertains specifically to this item. It's no secret, the council members, Councilman Garcia, former Mayor Rosie Fernandez, and the council in general in recent meetings has been very adamant to us as staff to address some of the longstanding issues that we hear from our community and that we are aware of. One of them being, for example, addressing the light issues, not only in downtown, but in the city overall. Having our own equipment, having our own bucket truck will allow the City Public Works Department and staff to properly address those needs without having to rely on a third party to assist us. This is a significant investment, as you can see, but one that's been long overdue in our city. I want to first off acknowledge the patience of city staff for this day to come. Fortunately, we're part of multiple collaboratives for purchase agreements that help expedite the purchase of these types of items. And a perfect example is the ambulance that was purchased not too long ago and that we were able to secure in a timely fashion. Then again, this item is an example of something that we're benefiting from as a result of our procurement policy. So with that said, this is the item. If you have any technical or specific questions, our Public Works Manager, Ms. Lily Falomir, is with us today.
I don't have anything.
I don't have any.
More than technical, so I think this is a great tool that we're in dire need for, whether it's to replace lights or maybe, I don't know how tall this is going to be, and I know there's the backup, but just to have an idea, I know that one of the concerns that, we get a lot of times is the palm trees,
Yeah.
that they need to be cleaned up and
Trim.
also trim, and that's also a fire hazard sometimes, because we've seen, in the past, sometimes get lit up by people. So I think, if we can, I think this will be a multi-use tool or piece of equipment. So again, thank you for doing all the legwork, and really exciting to see that we're getting the tools, and that's what we need to provide also to the staff. So thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem, let's knock on wood, but in the case of a natural disaster, this is something that comes handy
Yes.
to address those types of needs. So.
Yes. Thank you.
Okay, no further discussion. I make the motion to approve item as presented.
Second.
Second by Mr. Garcia. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carried. Item number 9, authorize city manager to enter into a funding agreement with Imperial County Air Pollution Control District for funding for alleyway paving project.
So Mayor, members of the council, if you recall, several months ago, we brought to your attention that a grant had been secured from the Environmental Protection Agency at the federal level through the Imperial County Air Pollution Control District. One of the big issues that has been a long-standing issue in the city is air quality in our region. Let's say it as it is in our region. But one of the things that allowed for this grant to be considered and approved by EPA is the partnership between the Air Pollution Control District and the city of Calexico to specifically tackle that matter by paving the multiple alleys that we have in our city that are either unpaved or in bad condition. $3.3 million were secured, and I'm very happy to share that through the Planning and Building Services Department and the county staff, we were able to address multiple items within the agreement that were vetted by both county council and the city attorney, for which now we're able to bring to you the agreement that has a specific scope of work, that has a specific phasing of the different plans that we're going to follow to get this project completed. So with that said, what's going to happen now is if this item is approved by this council, the Imperial County Board of Supervisors will follow, and we can begin implementation, which is what we've been waiting for.
Yes.
So with that said, if there are any questions, myself and the planning director are here to address them.
No, I just feel this was long overdue, and, for our citizens, it's going to really help out with the issue of the population and air pollution and everything else.
I know that is much to ask maybe, but we have the backup, and we can also tell people to go and look at the backup. But real briefly, we can just cover, more or less what is covered by this funding, these monies, which alleys. So we can just real quick, just mention them more or less. And of course, they can refer to the agenda, people, but if we can just put that, I don't know if one of you can do that?
So we can do a couple of things.
Or maybe do a map or...
No. This is what we'll do, Mayor. I'll have the planning director right now give a little detail on that.
Okay.
But what we'll do is that we'll actually post the map,
that will
the
be
project map on our city website, and we'll use our social media platforms to showcase it as well.
Thank you.
Good evening, council, members of the public and staff. We have a phasing plan. I'm pulling it up real quick here. So it'll be in 3 phases, and the phases and alleys that are part of the phases are spread out through the city of Calexico. And what's interesting is that this grant allocated the money for 2 types of pavement base material, and they allowed the city not only to do just alleys, but identified 2 main or major roads that need improvements. So there's actually going to be 2 roads that are going to get asphalt improvements with the grant as well. So let me pull that up, and we'll have that readily available in a binder form. We have a lot of the projects that are going on available via binders at the front counter at Planning and Building Services. So I can touch up on a couple of them. So the roadways that are going to be paved with asphalt will be from Pierce Avenue to Cesar Chavez Boulevard, and that will be 675 linear feet. The other roadway that's going to be paved will be from Anza Road, so we identify it as Anza Road, but it's from Andrade Avenue to East Rivera Avenue, and that's 2,596 linear feet of asphalt that will be paved new and improved. And there's 38 alleyways that are going to be improved within the city of Calexico. So in total, it's 40 new segments of alley and 2 street roadway improvements that will be able to upgrade within the city. So real quick, alley 2, 3, 4, 5 is going to be Pierce Avenue, Lincoln Street to Grant Street, Pierce Avenue to Cesar Chavez Boulevard alley, George Avenue, alley 6. And so these are kind of, you really need the backup documentation because they're with photos and they're on maps and outlined, because we don't usually name alleyways. So, and some of them are implied alleyways. And so really we're using like north and south streets that they're in the middle of to identify them. And the real factor here is the maps that we've prepared, identifying the alleyways that are to be improved. So I can go through the list real quick, but...
So, Director Taylenda, if I may, I think we can even take it a step further. I would please provide you direction. Once the County of Imperial approves the agreement, if we can either make the cut for the January or February water bill, that we include the map of the faces that includes the roads and the alleys that are going to be paved, so the community can put it up on their fridge and they know exactly what's going to get done. So
I think that's great.
Thank you. That's great. Appreciate that information.
Do you consider Cole Road? Okay.
So,
That's it, thank you. All right, so I'll make a motion to approve item 9 as presented.
second?
Second by Mr. Garcia, all those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Okay, motion carried. Item number 10, approval of resolution amending resolution 1009-01B regarding the Calexico Business Improvement District Advisory Board.
So kudos to a member that's with us from the bid here with us today. I thank you, Ms. Morales, for joining our meeting today. Mr. Wong, as a business owner as well. And Mr. Gordon, maybe as a liaison to many businesses in town. I do want to bring up this item, and I do want to say that this item was stripped from the list of commissions that are being worked on right now as it pertains to the ordinance language that our city clerk and that our city attorney are working on. And the reason that this item was pulled is because we have an urgency for the Business Improvement District to meet. That's obvious. And I think we all know that. I think this district is and should be handled separately, just because of the way it was composed several years ago, if not to say 2 decades ago. So that's why this item is before you here today, and it specifically identifies a couple of things from the original way that the ordinance read. And that is that we would like to require now that the members that make up the bid be part of the 2 zones that make up the bid. Why? Because we need to make sure that the people that are making the decisions, that have an actual budget to work with, live and breathe the business side of what the bid is supposed to be doing. With that said, I also want to add that the remaining commissions, because I brought this up, are on the cusp of also being addressed. Our city attorney, our city clerk are pending a couple of sit-down sessions with council members so we can get their input. I appreciate those that have already taken the time to do so. That will follow also with the training for the commissioners so we can bring those items for this body for their consideration and approval. One of the things that I will say is that if this item does get approved today, I will work diligently to make sure that we have a meeting before the end of the year, because there are multiple items that need to be addressed. The sooner, the better. And there are not many days left, but it's a need that we need to address. I do want to point out that the current bylaws of the bid that are not to be changed include that they are to meet the second Thursday at 6 p.m. of every month. So that would continue to be the time when the group convenes. The only changes are the ones that I referenced. The resolution would also read that the bid is to meet every other month. This does not mean that they cannot meet on a monthly basis. I want to point that out, especially now that we're going to kickstart the operation. But at a minimum, the expectation is that every other month they meet. So with that said, that concludes my presentation. I'll be happy to answer any questions. I know there might be a comment there. So.
Yeah, Mr. Figueroa, so in contrast to what it was before, they were meeting just when there was a need, as opposed to now it's once a month?
Yes, sir. So now what we want to do is that we want to formalize, right? We want to formalize when they convene. Again, that doesn't take away, if there's a special purpose for they to
Right.
convene, it can happen.
Okay, thank you. I don't have anything else.
And you know what? This is something that I'm glad that we're revisiting, because some of these ordinances or resolutions, have long gone, their time of usefulness, and they need to be revamped. So I'm glad that we're revisiting this. But also, what I would like to see, maybe taking a bigger approach, maybe within the Muni Code. Going back, I think
Yes, we talked
we
about
were
this.
having a discussion on that, where this might apply, or this can apply to all the commissions and committees, or any special, ad hoc committees that we form for specific purposes. But we don't have to go back and go one by one, and let's just do something that applies. There will be some particulars that will apply just to every commission, like the time that they meet, or how many times they meet a month or a year. But something that is uniform, something that applies, and something that is going to be able to be revisited, and that we don't have to wait another, a few years to go back. So if we can start looking and thinking, how can we revamp, look at the Muni Code. I was looking at section 2.19, and I think, there's some work that can be done in there.
Absolutely.
So that's my comment.
Thank you, Mr. Garcia. Sariola Fernandez? No comments? Ms. Morales, you want to say something?
Good evening, City Council members. Thank you for allowing me to come here and make some comments, and I am very happy to see that we are now on the agenda. It's been quite a long time, and I've been bugging Gabby about us meeting, and I know I have to wait for Mr. Figueroa. It's also a learning curve for me here on how this all works, but being in downtown Calexico, I've got two businesses going on right now, and the city of Calexico downtown is desperately in need of revamping, beautifying our city of Calexico, especially now that we have the border that's been open. We're getting hit really hard with a lot of people coming for their COVID vaccinations, COVID testing, and shopping, which is a good thing. It's a positive thing. But we need to really clean up downtown, and I'm really looking forward to also collaborating with the other commissions, like the planning development, that I saw the young lady do some presentations. I think that's great. If we can all collaborate so we're not overlapping, and this way we can also accomplish a lot more, a lot sooner, that would be great. So that's one of my recommendations. Any
It's a
questions?
point we'll take in, Ms. Morales. Absolutely, yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. So you make a motion to approve item 10 as presented.
Second?
Second by Mr. Garcia, all in favor, aye.
Aye.
Motion carried 3-0. Now we have public hearings. Public hearing, item number 11, public hearings, introduction or first reading by title only of ordinance adopting amendments to chapter 17, section 17.05.120.
Mayor, if you feel comfortable with the approach, what we can do, we can take obviously each item at a time. We can conduct a presentation for each item. After the presentation is completed, you can open the public hearing to see if there are any comments from the public.
Okay, that's presented? Yes.
Sure.
Thank you.
With that said, I'll pass the microphone to Director Thailenda for item number 11.
Good evening, council, staff, and members of the public. The item before you this evening is a proposed amendment to the regulatory ordinance of Chapter 17.05 relating to commercial zones, specifically Section 17.05.20 for permitted and conditional uses, and Section 17.05.130 for property development standards of the Calexico Municipal Code. These items before you are part of the council's direction to incentivize economic development within the city of Calexico. And I'm not sure if I should say after or during COVID, because we're in that gray area where we're trying to just get through it. So a real quick background, the general plan is in essence the blueprint of the city, the foundation. So the general plan is a policy document that guides future development by establishing goals and policies related to a multitude of aspects of community life. And the portion that's brought before you in draft form for amendments, as also in item 12 and 13 on the agenda this evening, are zoning ordinances. And the zoning ordinances are what implement the general plan policies through detailed development regulations such as specific types of uses and building requirements. Zoning implements the general plan with greater specificity as to what can be built and where, and development standards. The proposed amendments are the beginning of many to be brought before council. This is a draft for your review and your input and direction, council. The commercial zoning ordinance proposed amendments have been identified in what I would say the direction that council has given to revitalize and incentivize economic development and growth within our city. Some of these items in tonight's agenda in draft form have, staff has identified areas within our zoning ordinances that, if updated, would really help broaden and incentivize development. And so I'm going to go through the proposed amendments real quick. It's a few, but they are drastic. They carry a lot of weight. So, for example, we are adding within the table of permitted and conditionally permitted uses a different type of permitted use standard. So I'm going to go based off of within your report, you have everything in red is what's proposed to be new. So we are proposing to add P with an asterisk, which appears shall be permitted, but subject to review, approval, and conditions of approval by the Planning and Building Services Director. So these are some uses in certain zones that it would incentivize development quicker, but it would not jump the process of creating conditions of approval and review by staff internally. And that is outlined in the table. If there's any questions, I'll stand for questions towards the end. So that's one of the proposed changes within this document. Then the one that I think is very detrimental is the lot coverage maximum. Currently, if you look at page 5 of 11, towards the bottom, you'll see the lot coverage max. That, within all the zones, is a limiting factor, so something I would call a government constraint. Now, I'd like to put on the record that this document, the general plan and zoning ordinances, have not been updated for a very long time. It costs a lot of money, and not just in the city, but I could say all the cities within the valley have had a interesting time updating these policy documents, because you need funding to do so, and the funding is in $500,000 to do something of the sort for cities in a city of our size. So the lot coverage maximum is being proposed to be increased within our commercial zones to make it competitive with neighboring cities. Currently, right now, our lot coverage maximums in some of the zones is under what other cities' commercial zones allow for. And the lot coverage maximum, let me define that real quick. That is when a new development is coming, they have a parcel size, and if the parcel size is 6,000 square feet, they can they can only develop up to 30% of what would be 6,000 square feet. So it's actually a limiting factor. So if people want to come and develop within the city of Calexico, and then they look at it and they say, well, the lot coverage max only lets me build the size of a building in Calexico, but if I go to El Centro, Imperial, or Brawley, their lot coverage maximum is 80 or 100. So these proposed amendments are efforts to make us as competitive, if not more competitive, to the neighboring cities. That's the goal, right? So that's the other one that I think carries a lot of weight, because when developers come and they have 18,000 or square foot parcel, and I tell them you can only do 30% of that. What? So these have been identified through processing and then in comparison and analysis with what other cities are doing. And like I said, it's one of many to come before the council for your review, input, and vision and direction. So I will stand for any questions at this moment.
I go back to, this is something that will move us it's moving us in the right direction. I think it's about time, not just that we're competitive with other cities, but also that we're attractive for investment, that we're not putting ourselves first. And I understand, that we have to make sure that, we expedite without compromising either. Not to an extent compromising or putting ourselves in a position where we're not planning accordingly. But I think this is something that needs to be done based on what's going on, based on what we're seeing. We need to be updating this. And I'm glad to see that not just on residential, but commercial. And I know there's more coming up. One thing that I also want to repeat, and I shared this with the city manager, I want to make sure also that when we're doing this, that we have enough staff, enough manpower to make sure that all of this also matches our experience in meeting the needs, the requests that we're going to get. Because at the end of the day, this is serving our, business attraction, retention, creation, but we need to have appropriate levels of staffing. So something that will allow us to also be self-sufficient, create, more revenue, bring more revenue. So with that, I'm really excited to see that we're finally catching on and catching up to other neighboring cities, so we can be competitive. Thank you. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Anything else?
I think you're doing a great job. Thank you.
So the intention is to do the item 12 now, right? Go through all three of them.
Yes, Mayor,
Go ahead.
if you can open the public hearing and just take the time.
Okay. So open up the public hearings now. Anybody want to speak?
You want to take the time and close it?
7:52.
But we do have, right? Okay, so we're going to open it to public hearing at 7:50. Mr. Benny Horton, you want to speak?
Council members, I think this is a fantastic idea, but one thing that you should make sure that you put into the situation is training of your staff. It doesn't do any good to have all these great new ideas about the developers if the staff doesn't know what it's about. So I think one of the things, and I think Lisa can help in reference to training the staff, because one thing that I really dislike when I walk into somewhere and the person doesn't know what I'm talking about, that really irritates me. And then if they don't know, they make something up, then I have to say, show me where it's written. And they can't show it to me because they don't have it. And this is my suggestion. All these ideas that I see here are fantastic. Lisa has done a fantastic job to put these new concepts together. We're going to be very much competitive with other other cities. And one of the things that gives you the upper hand is knowledge. And when you have the knowledge, you have the power over the ones that don't have the knowledge. That's just a thought. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Horton. Anyone else? No, you want me to close this one then? Yeah. So we'll close the public hearing on this item at 7:54.
Correct. At this time, we're ready to take a motion on the approval of the ordinance. And for the record, let me just read the title of the ordinance. An ordinance City of Calexico amending Chapter 17.05, Section 1705-120 and 1705-130 of the municipal code relating to the commercial zones listed uses and development standards.
I make a motion.
Second.
Second, Mr. Garcia. All those in favor? Aye?
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Motion carried. Item 12.
Council, the item before you is also a zoning ordinance amendment. The proposed amendments to item number 12 is for the home occupation ordinance, is an attempt to alleviate operational impacts that the current zoning ordinance for home occupations creates in terms of performance and development standards. The proposed amendments to the ordinance will also apply to any commercial mixed uses and if ever industrial development projects where there may be residential uses, as in legal non-conforming uses. We do have residential uses in zones that are zoned differently, which is a rabbit hole, but they're called legal non-conforming uses. So anyone who has a home, a residential use, regardless of the zone, are protected by our own ordinance, legal non-conforming uses, and would be governed by this home occupation ordinance as well. There is a need for administrative flexibility in the essence of creating a process that is tailored for residents and the small business community. The proposed ordinance gives staff flexibility while still keeping and promoting transparency at an administrative level, and it coincides with the huge push that the state of California has been promoting via like the micro kitchens, the small businesses, the cottage food homes. They have different types of licensing for home operations, and a lot of the time our ordinance conflicts with other uses that have not been identified by the state of California, yet the state of California has promoted like the small food operations, and the type of use and traffic and business and attention that creates at a home is what was envisioned and analyzed with the proposed amendments to this ordinance. So the proposed amendments coincide with what the state has permitted for different uses and operations, but also keeping safeguards, as in safety nets, like if we would still have the ability to impose rules and regulations. So this, again, is a draft, your input, vision, direction. So some of the proposed amendments, and it's a very short ordinance for home occupations. But a lot of, and this home occupation, fun fact, is actually the same as a lot of the other neighboring cities, almost verbatim, home occupation ordinances. And I can attest to that. So by creating or proposing these amendments, not only does it make the city of Calexico, one, a step in a different direction to promote small businesses, but we're also now different if these amendments are adopted. So the constraints here, it says that home businesses cannot store materials on site. So one of the proposed amendments would say, unless the Planning and Building Services Director approves a request of stock and trade or exterior storage of materials. So anything being stored would go through a review process. And whatever type of material, obviously there's CEQA, California Environmental Quality Act, that would be incorporated to the thought process for any type of material. For example, I had a resident recently come in. And they wanted to do a small home business operation, and they wanted to repair cell phones on site. In order to repair cell phones, you need screens and screen protectors, those kinds of electronic gadgets and so forth. If he lists that, I cannot approve a home occupation with him storing his materials on site versus someone who's doing accounting or payroll and they're just using their computer. It's very different. And then it's not on the same playing field. One is at a disadvantage over the other because the materials is stored differently on a laptop, and then the other ones actually has physical materials, even though the impact is not very extensive on site. And so through through the proposed amendments, it keeps the essence of the constraint, but with the ability to approve otherwise with conditions of approval on the home occupation.
Lisa, also what I think that we should make it clear also that we don't want any exit, parking issues.
Correct.
Especially, and also, no signs. If they say I decide to put up some type of business, having a big sign in front of my house, stuff. I think that's something that are you going to enforce that, or there's certain guidelines that they're going to have to follow? Because also, we do have people that are paying, rent, like downtown and different areas, and we also don't want how is it take them out of business?
Correct.
It's just like is it going to be a certain amount of small things, big things? Yeah, because we don't want to take any business away from people that are renting space out there.
What I could do, so with that said, and more input and direction I'm anticipating right now, I did incorporate a section that calls for signs to identify the home occupation. And the standard is it must be reviewed and approved by the Planning and Building Services Director. There is a limit. The design, color scheme, and location of the home occupation signs are subject to review and approval. Residents will need to obtain all local, state, and federal permits related to any structure or use tied to the home business operation. That, and with the direction, I can go back and polish the ordinance and create different options for council to review in terms of how many signs, size of signs, placement, limitations. I could even make in other cities the sign process, sign review process, entails an actual formal review and approval by the Planning Commission at no cost to the business, but it keeps the essence of transparency and a due process. So I could come up with that type of, those types of options, even one where there's no signs, and then for the council to review and see if they'd like to adopt that in the ordinance. So this is, like I said, this is a draft for your input and direction, and anything you'd like to see, I can go and create options. So we can really formulate something that's tailored to the vision of the council and the residents.
If I may.
Yeah.
I think this is great from an entrepreneurial, approach. And with that also, not just with what, Councilwoman Fernandez mentioned, signage and all those things, parking. But I think the state had also put something on home cooking and all of that, right? With the specific amounts, and even income that they can generate on an annual basis. So, and to that extent also, going back to Ms. Fernandez's comment, maybe we can put some parameters around that also, so we can protect our established business.
Yes.
And what we want to do is, again, create and foster an entrepreneurial spirit that hopefully this type of operations will grow into a full-blown business or businesses. That's what I can see. And I understand it. And I think it's a great idea that, some of these processes is left up to the department, head or the building director or inspector to do this, to expedite. Because if we go back, every time to either the planning commission, the council, I think it just adds, time and a layer of bureaucracy that delays all these processes. So if we want to be lean, expedient, and effective, these are the type of things that we have to be looking at. But we have to define very clear parameters as to where do we want to see this, how big do we want to see this, and how much, amounts. Because we have to protect also our established businesses. They have an operation, they have overhead. And I think there is a place and space and a market for everyone. We just have to make sure that we define it and that we protect everyone also.
Okay, Mayor Pro Tem, and after hearing our former mayor as well, one thing, an option that I can give you folks is you can consider what you have before you, as the director just read. She has a lot of discretion on how things will get approved. While this is being detailed a little more, like you're saying, we could at least have an updated ordinance with a commitment of coming back with some of the specific items you requested. In the meantime, you know that our director will follow the recommendations that she's heard here today whenever she comes across these applications. As an option,
Okay, anything else? I'll open it for public hearing at 8:05. Anybody from the audience want to speak on this item? Nobody here. We'll close this public hearing at 8:05 in 10 seconds. Excuse me. Anybody want to make a motion on that?
Make a motion. Do you want to read that?
Correct. I'll read the title of the ordinance to the record. Ordinance of the City of Calexico, amending section 17.11.200 of the Municipal Code relating to home occupations.
So I make a motion for approval with the stipulations of, the revisions and improvements. So I'll make a motion to approve item number 12.
All right, I'll second that. All those in favor? Aye?
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carried 3-0. Moving on to item 13.
Item 13, Director, please.
Council members, the item before you is a brand new ordinance. in regards to zoning, and it is the proposed administrative variance ordinance is an attempt to alleviate impacts that the current zoning ordinance, performance and development standards impose on mostly residential projects. The proposed ordinance will also apply to commercial and industrial development projects, but the main vision in the formulation of this administrative variance, and it really does reflect in what it can be used for, the administrative variance, is for residential developments. I'm going to go really quick to the section where it defines the variance and what it can be used for. So fence height, setbacks, lot coverage, height in any district, and carports. We have a lot of carports that go up historically, and when we go and we tag them for code enforcement, the residents are, it has a lot to do with educating our residents and sharing and telling them where it comes from, why we're doing it, what code enforcement is, why we have to do it, why we have to follow through, and then what their options are. And at this time, they don't have options because of our front yard setback requirements, and the way the ordinance is written, it doesn't allow for structures within the setbacks of the front yard. So we get a large base of our senior population who then they say, hey, my car's hot and I don't have AC, so I need the carport. The carport design standard sometimes is just a tarp. So this kind of administrative variance ordinance would allow for the ability to get our residents into compliance for a fraction of the cost of what a fully blown variance would entail, and because we create a process that gives an option, it also increases the potential for anyone trying to do something that deviates from the ordinance to obtain an administrative variance and go through the due process and then say, sir, ma'am, these are our standards, this is the cost, let's give you a phasing plan, you have so many months to get into compliance and beautify it. Aesthetics are important. We want our city to look nice. We want to keep the aesthetics to a standard. We want to create standards. We want to change. And how do we do that? By making a permitting system that has a potential for the residents to obtain and to apply and to go through. Because the fee is, the current variance with the adjustments that have been brought and approved by the council, a regular variance is $2,060. And if we get any resident, sometimes it's not feasible. And I use the senior community because those are the ones that I've gotten the most that like their carports, want their carports, or want to do a patio and they don't have, because of the nature of their lot, they don't have enough room, or any type of buildings that were done before, now they have so much room to extend it. So this type of administrative variance is envisioned with making sure that we're ensuring life and safety, the building code, and creating a process that they can go through and that they can afford to go through, really. And it is tied to conditions of approval. It's tied to noticing requirements, if you look through it. So it does mirror what an actual variance entails that goes to the Planning Commission in regards to notifying the parcels within so many feet, letting neighbors speak for or against any type of administrative variance and saying, you know what, I don't want a carport next door, or I don't want them to go up 2 feet from the property line. It gives residents the ability to engage, interact, know what's going on, so the factor of transparency, and it gives anyone processing the administrative variance, whether it's me or anybody else in the city, a standard to follow. So, like I said, the administrative variance can be applied on any type of zoning, so commercial, industrial, residential. But really the vision and purpose of this is for the resident community. Sometimes they don't have the means to pay $2,060. And this one the fee would be adopted at a rate of what department heads would be directly linked to reviewing it. So it would have the police chief, the fire chief, city manager, myself, and chief building official. We need all those elements to ensure safety, life and fire and safety, and building code compliance. So that's this item before you. I stand for any questions.
And I just think this is, again, a testament that we want to move in a direction that we make this not just affordable, but safe.
Yeah.
Right? That people go through the right process. And it's not just a matter of saving a few dollars here and there, but for them to understand that this is what is going to be safe for them, and even for our first responders. God forbid if there's an emergency, we want to make sure that those structures are, built according to code. And those are some of the things that sometimes, we don't take into account. We're just looking at probably at the cost or the affordability of building something, and probably not, going through this process. So that's something that we have to make sure that we understand, and we have our community understand, that it's not just to create more processes and more inconvenience as they will see it, but again, it's to create uniformity, aesthetics, and some type of order also, and safety. So I think it's a good ordinance, a good proposal. So that's my comment.
Thank you, Ms. Garcia. Ms. Hernandez?
I don't have anything.
No,
I think
I'll open up a public hearing at
It's,
8:15. Anybody speak? No? I'll close the public hearing at 8:15 in 5 seconds. It's done, I guess. We're done with that one, right?
Correct. If you allow me to read the title of the ordinance into the record, Ordinance of the City Council, City of Calexico, adding Section 17.20 to Chapter 17 of the Calexico Municipal Code, creating an administrative variance permitting process. Thank you.
Okay, I'll make a motion to approve as presented.
Second.
Second by Mr. Garcia. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carried 3-0. Thank you. Okay, that'll conclude the public hearings. We got, next item is future agenda items. I'll go ahead, ladies first.
If I have anything for the
Future
next
agenda?
I can't think of anything.
No?
I can't
Okay.
think of anything right now.
I don't have anything. Do you have anything?
I want to go back to my comment that I left for this specific in comment / maybe something that we can look into as a future item. With all this dynamic changes that are happening, and like I said, we need continue to foster our talent and continue to foster our own talent to continue to move up, continue to learn. And I think, Mr. Horton alluded to training and making sure that we train and prepare our own workforce in the city. But I think also we need to make sure that we continue to create future leaders that also can be the next public servants here, at the city of Calexico. So with that, I would like to see how we can look into starting either a volunteer program / internship, reaching out to San Diego State, Imperial Valley College, maybe some of the local high school, maybe, with the CTEs or any type of specialized, interest, or someone that has an interest in exploring public service. I think we need to foster that. We need to welcome that type of assistance. I know there are many people who would like to, assist. And with this that we're seeing, and the needs that we're going to have. I think this is one way that we can start preparing ourselves in addressing the future, in creating our future leaders, creating a future workforce. So I want to see how we can develop a type of an internship / volunteer mentorship program. And if there's any assistance needed, I can also help. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Garcia. Mr. Arriola Fernandez? Ms. Arriola Fernandez, you want anything?
Oh, you already said.
No?
No,
Okay.
I mean, you already asked me.
Oh, you did? Okay. Making sure you,
I think
okay.
just along with what he's saying, I know that there's a lot of technology involved with that as well, because I mean, you know, insurances, but we can reach out to the schools. I think that would be good.
All right, thank you. So I'll make a motion to adjourn our meeting at 8:17.
Second?
Second, Mr. Garcia, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
City Council meeting adjourned.